Right, questions to Church Commissioners, House of Commission, Restoration, Renewal Client Board, Speakers Committee on the Electoral Commission. I'll let the front benches change over. With Charlie Dewhirst.
Question number 1, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, the Church of England has more than 10,000 churches in our towns and villages in rural areas. In addition to their regular processes of prayer and worship, parish churches play an important role in the life of our rural communities.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency of Bridlington and the Wolds, rural parishes face huge financial pressures to maintain their historic church buildings, with costs often running into tens of thousands. Yet they receive no funding from the Church of England or the government. The Church of England's buildings comprise of over 50% of the country's listed buildings, but all the money needed to maintain them has to be raised locally. This maintenance will soon be beyond the ability of our local churches in rural areas. So will the Honourable Lady make representations to the Church of England to ensure that there is more financial support for local churches and save this wonderful part of our heritage?
I thank the Honourable Member for his question, and can I just congratulate him on being a true champion for his constituency, but also for the need for additional and resources that will ensure that our churches can truly stand the test of time. I will certainly raise these issues and write to him further about what steps he can take at a local level. It's also worth pointing out that representing rural communities and dioceses, bishops do meet regularly on a quarterly basis to actually look at best practice and other ways that they can support their diocese better.
Tom Collins, you were stuck.
Which line, Mr. Speaker?
Sorry, you what? Are you bobbing and not bob? Okay, let's go to Blake Stevens.
Question number 2, Mr. Speaker.
Right, let's just go to Marsha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and with your permission, I would like to group questions 2 and 5. As I set out during Church Commissioner questions in January, the listed place of worship scheme is an effective way to deliver that transformational benefits to local communities. The government's extension of the scheme is very welcome, but there are a number of unanswered questions about the impact the changes to the scheme will have.
Stephenson. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The extension of the scheme will be welcome news to churches like St Botolph's in Aspley Guys in mid-Bedfordshire. But they've told me of their concern of the lack of certainty for longer-term projects that may need support beyond 12 months. Will the Church Commissioner join me and other colleagues in pressing the Chancellor to provide longer-term certainty over funding?
Marsha. Good.
Again, the Honourable Member has raised this issue at Church Questions previously, and he's right to continue to do so. Whilst the scheme is being extended until March 2026, we do not have a long-term plan or solution, and it is only right that the government sets out its plans for this. We know that larger-scale projects costing over £125,000 also will not be able to get all of the VAT returned on scheme. So it's really important that we ensure that the Department of Culture, Media and Sport come up with a solution to ensure that the listed place of worship scheme can continue.
Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Holy Trinity Church in Sunningdale has served the parish for 185 years. They now want to build on that legacy with a community hub complete with new facilities, including volunteer-run cafe for the wider community. Whilst a £25,000 cap on VAT relief may be enough to sustain smaller projects, this will cost well over £1 million, which would need another £250,000 in donations, which can't stretch that far. Whilst I understand the government is encouraging churches to apply for lottery funding, Reverend John Hutchinson has raised the fact that the scope of this funding is too narrow to cover the project. Will the second Church Estates Commissioner be willing to meet me to discuss how we can get this project over the line?
The Honourable Member makes a really important point and raises an issue that I know is affecting many churches. Whilst the £25,000 cap does work for smaller projects, for those larger projects, like he mentioned, with his own church and his constituency, will not go far enough. I too, the church I attend, Holy Trinity Clapham, is also experiencing similar challenges. So yes, I'm very happy to meet with the Honourable Member.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The capping of the listed places of worship grant scheme has left many churches in physical ruin, such as the Belfry in York, where it's going to lose £1.5 million. They've done everything that was expected of them, and clearly we need to find a solution here, and the suggestions from government have been insufficient. Will she ensure that the Church Commissioners coordinate a meeting of all of those churches mid-project to be able to complete these works that they've undertaken?
I thank my honourable friend for her question, and I will certainly take that one back and see if we can set up a meeting of this nature. As she has highlighted, Mr. Speaker, many churches will be missing out on vital funds to ensure that they can carry out the necessary repairs, particularly also for those churches who have already started work. And they will know, and if their work extends beyond the March 2026 deadline, they too will not be able to reclaim any VAT. So it's really important that we find a long-term solution. So yes, I will be happy to take that one forward.
John Lamb.
Thank you, Speaker. Question number 3.
Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, officials are working to ensure Portcullis House continues to function effectively. For example, projects and maintenance are underway regarding heating, cooling and ventilation, upgrading equipment that is reaching end of life, planned maintenance of toilets and more regular cleaning of them, refurbishment of lifts and escalators, improvements of lighting and blinds in members' offices. Work is also underway on a longer-term solution for the PCH roof.
Mr. Speaker, lifts that don't work, toilets that don't flush, taps that don't work, leaks in the roof, heating that's either too hot or too cold, elevators that break down. By any standards, Portcullis House is not working in the way that it should. Mr. Speaker, my concern is not about honourable and right honourable members. My concern is about the staff who work for us in Portcullis House. It's clear that Portcullis House is no longer fit for purpose. So can we get a further update from the House of Commons Commission about the work they're doing to make Portcullis House fit for the 21st century?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm really glad that the honourable member has shone light on this important topic. There is much wear and tear in Portcullis House. On Tuesday of this week, the Administration Committee toured Portcullis House, looking at the nuts and the bolts holding the building together. We've asked officers to please come forward with a plan of action for the Commission to consider to improve services in both the short and the long term for this lovely building, to make it a much better place for us all to work in. And I'll come back to him on his question.
John Glenn.
Question number 4, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I just say the Right Honourable Member is a true champion for the cathedrals, particularly those in his own constituency. And it was a pleasure to meet with him to explore some of the issues that he has raised. We know that research has shown by the Association of English Cathedrals found that 9.5 million visitors contributed around 235 million in additional expenditure for cathedral and local businesses. And I also understand the Salisbury Cathedral in his constituency contributed to nearly 9 out of 10 visits to Salisbury.
Glenn.
I thank the Honourable Lady for her reply. I would want to make her aware of a group that's been set up in Parliament, cross-party group supported by the member for St Albans and the member for Chester, amongst others, who represent cathedral cities. And we want to help her by providing greater evidence of the economic contribution of cathedrals. Previously, the First World War Centenary Repair Fund was something that helped many cathedrals, including Salisbury, and I hope that she will look at making representations for something similar to be created to support our cathedrals in future.
Nobody can deny working cross-party is probably one of the best ways to get things done, so I'm happy to support the Right Honourable Member in their endeavours on this particular issue. I'm also very happy to meet with the group as well.
Marsha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Newcastle's beautiful cathedral is an important part of our economic life as well as our cultural and religious life. But it receives very little funding from the Church of England and does not benefit from any significant endowments or property ownership, unlike other cathedrals. But with 80% of England's cathedrals predicted to post deficit budgets, what discussions has she had with the Church of England regarding the financial sustainability of cathedrals?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I say, The Church of England meet regularly to look at the impact of cost in relation to cathedrals, and I'm very happy to write to my honourable friend further about this issue.
Christine Jolly.
Question number 6, please, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So the Pastoral and Closed Churches Committee of the Church Commissioners has recently consulted with the Church of Scotland on the experience of managing parishes and small congregations.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her answer. Scotland's Churches Trust estimates that the Church of Scotland could lose 30% of its churches in the coming years. St Andrews in Clarmiston, in my constituency, could be one of them. It celebrated its 70th anniversary this year, but now could face closure because of declining congregations, lower incomes, and it threatens a valuable community space, particularly used by vulnerable and elderly people. So could she outline how, perhaps, the Church of England could work with the Church of Scotland to share best practice for managing churches with smaller congregations to preserve those valuable community spaces?
Marsha.
I can outline to the Honourable Lady that the National Church Institutions and the Church of Scotland signed the Columba Declaration committed to joint dialogue on a range of issues, and this is something that I understand they do regularly, where they meet and discuss these issues, so it might be useful also for the Honourable Lady to reach out to the Church of Scotland on this, and if she's unable to do so, I'm very happy to also put her in touch with them.
Kate Tossen.
Question number 7, Mr Speaker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. So the situation in Gaza and the West Bank is devastating, and the Church continues to support the Diocese of Jerusalem through prayer, financial assistance and also advocacy, and the Archbishop's appeal for the diocese continues to provide much needed supports for the church organisations and bodies, whether that is in Gaza or the West Bank.
Mr Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for her reply. In the West Bank and Jerusalem, the security situation and economic conditions are worsening, with increasing violence and a decline in the number of pilgrims visiting. This has led to a rising level of immigration, as many Christians are leaving the Holy Land, where generations before them have lived. Please, could my honourable friend outline what work is the Church doing to assist the diocese in supporting their dwindling congregations during such difficult times?
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question? And, you know, there is no safe place in the West Bank, including in East Jerusalem, for Palestinians. The attacks on the Christian community there are focused on seizing land and property, and they have been increasing in recent months, with the Armenian churches bearing the brunt of this. The Christian community is facing a coordinated and aggressive move to drive these living stones of our faith to leave the region. I know that bishops have frequently visited the region over the past 16 months, where they've met regularly with the Archbishop of Jerusalem to discuss how best they can help the diocese respond to so many of these appalling attacks. And I would just say, finally, it is so important that we also hold up the people of Palestine in prayer for their safety and also for their security. Violence is not the answer to any of this.
Shannon.
Speaker, can I thank the Church Commissioner for that answer, and the Honourable Lady for Edmonton and Witchmere Hill for bringing this forward. A year and a half ago, Mr Speaker, I met the Archbishop from Jerusalem. He outlined some of the things that the Church were doing. That was, first of all, education, jobs, opportunities for young people to have apprenticeships and do things, but those can only happen if there's money available. So can I ask the Church Commissioner, what discussions has she had with the Archbishop and the Church to specifically retain and help retain young people in Jerusalem rather than leaving? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What I will say on that is that I've just mentioned in my earlier response to the Honourable Lady's question about funds, but I can certainly write to him further about the discussions that have taken place with the bishops as well with the Archbishop of Jerusalem, if he will find that helpful.
Mr Speaker.
Thank you. I know my honourable friend knows that I do not answer for the Church of Scotland, and also heritage and culture is a devolved matter. But when parish churches to close, the Church of England does try to secure new homes for its instruments, working with local authorities and the diocese and national heritage bodies. I believe the Church of Scotland is also taking similar steps.
Patricia Ferguson.
I thank my honourable friend for that answer, Mr Speaker. St Margaret's Church of Scotland in Knightswood in my constituency is closing, much to the detriment of its congregation and the wider area. But the church is also home to a very significant pipe organ built by the renowned maker Henry Willis. In some countries in Europe, there are protections in law for historic instruments such as this to prevent them being destroyed or abandoned when their church becomes redundant. Does my honourable friend believe that such a scheme could and perhaps should be established in the UK?
Again, my honourable friend, she really does highlight just the importance and the significance of preserving these instruments, particularly those at St Martin's. And so I would be happy to write to her to suggest organisations where they may be able to get help for the congregation at St Margaret's. And I can also be very happy to, should I say, to put her in touch with the Church of Scotland to see how they can best take that forward with her.
Tom Collins.
Question 9, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, the Restoration and Renewal programme is currently in the preparatory stage. To date, key cost drivers for the programme have included design work and programme and project management costs, for example, for surveys. In terms of delivering the work for the palace, 3 delivery options are currently being developed, including their costs, and the intention is to publish this information before the end of this year.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for his answer. It seems to me that the 3 options for delivery works represent various degrees of compromise between shortened timescales and the associated reduced overall costs and the continued presence and function of Parliament within the Palace of Westminster. It is wise to seek ways to negate the need for such a compromise. What possibilities for decantation into Westminster Hall might yet be explored? Would the Minister meet with myself and members of the project team to discuss these possibilities?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I thank my honourable friend for his question? His professional background allows him insight into the choices that we'll have to make in the future. I understand the possibility of the Westminster Hall being used as a host for the Chamber has been considered, but there were concerns about impacts on the oldest part of the palace. The northern estate is the favoured location. So I will ask, though, senior officers of the Restoration and Renewal team about his idea, and I'm happy to discuss it further with him.
Joe Powell.
Question number 10, please, Mr Speaker.
Speaker, the first and current strategy and policy statement for the Electoral Commission was published by the previous government in February of last year. The Commission passed its report to the Speaker's Committee on the Electoral Commission this week, which sets out how it has had regard to the statement as required by law. The Commission will publish that report in due course.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The 2022 Elections Act, passed under the previous government, imposed a strategy and policy statement on the Electoral Commission, undermining its independence for some confected agenda about voter fraud and erodes trust and confidence in the Electoral Commission. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that the best course of action would not be to publish a further strategy and policy statement until such a time that the legislation can be reviewed?
Well, I can tell the honourable gentleman that is the Commission's view. He will know that the Commission remains opposed to the principle of a strategy and policy statement and views such a mechanism as inconsistent with its independent role.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Of the 3.5 million British citizens abroad, it is estimated that only 3% participated in the last general election. What action can the Electoral Commission and my right honourable friend take to ensure that people who are qualified to vote actually can do so at the future general election?
Yes, I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and he's right that there is always more that can be done to ensure that all those eligible for the franchise, which now includes a substantial number of overseas voters, understand what they're entitled to, and that we offer them all the assistance we can to make sure they can participate in the process.
Rosie Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Question 11, please.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Crown Nominations Committee, or the CNC, Commission rather, chaired by Lord Evan, will oversee the appointment of the new Archbishop. A public consultation is underway, and I would encourage all honourable members to submit their thoughts. They have up until the 28th of March to do so, and an announcement will be expected before the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recent headlines about safeguarding failures have badly eroded trust in the Church. The former Archbishop of Canterbury, with whom I had the pleasure of working closely, resigned his position in recognition of this so that the Church could move forward. I congratulate the Second Church Estates Commissioner on her powerful speech at the most recent synod. Does she agree with me that those selecting our next Archbishop must not be implicated in any safeguarding failures of any kind?
Can I thank the honourable member for her fantastic and very poignant question? Both historical and recent safeguarding failures have eroded trust in the Church. To rebuild and restore that trust, the Church must show it is serious about keeping people safe. And this has to include holding those responsible for failures to account. No one, no matter how senior, can be above the scrutiny and accountability. I agree those responsible for selecting the next Archbishop must inspire confidence and trust, both among the public and also among victims and survivors who have been so badly let down. There will be an adjournment debate on Monday on safeguarding in the Church of England. And also there is going to be a question and answer session on safeguarding with the Archbishop of York and other senior members of the Church, and I'm very pleased that that is now going to be taking place, and I would encourage honourable members from across this House to ensure that they go along to those sessions.
Ollie Glover, final question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question number 12, please.
Mr. Speaker, the Restoration and Renewal programme has engaged extensively with staff of both houses, and there is a legal duty to do so under the 2019 Act. In the last 2 years alone, the programme has held over 420 workshops with parliamentary subject experts, engaged over 1,200 staff in group briefings, and taken over 700 staff members on our tours of the palace. This includes staff who work for members in addition to those who work for the houses. Enabling staff to engage is vital, and the programme team will continue to ensure that there are opportunities to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his answer, and as he says, there are 7,000 staff working here that support 650 members of this House and 836 in the other place. And as he recognises, it's essential that the needs, wisdom and experience of the people who make the estate a success are heard and fully considered. So will he commit to continuing to run that full consultation and maximising efforts to do so in a way that will ensure the strongest attendance and the best engagement?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member makes an important point. The whole Westminster village needs to be engaged in this important topic, which affects all of our workplace.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The best way that we can support staff in this building is to make sure that their health and safety is paramount. And with the three options that are being proposed, there are radically different health and safety implications. When these options come to the House, will he ensure that that health and safety information is absolutely categorically laid out, and can he confirm when the House will be voting on those options?
Mr. Speaker, our timetable says we remain on track to bring the proposals forward by the end of 2025, which will detail costs, timescales, risks and benefits. And of course, the right honourable member's point about safety will be foremost in our minds.
Right, that completes questions.